Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining us from. My name is Dalia. I'm the community manager here at Kong, and I'm very happy to have all of you here today for our October user call. The topic for today is what's new in Kong Konnect, unified control for APIs. We have Ross with us here today. I will let him introduce himself. Let's take all of the questions at the end. You will see there is a Q&A function on the bottom, so please use that to put all of your questions there. And once he's done presenting, we will answer all of them. This session is recorded, so the recording will be available on our YouTube channel after this session concludes. So I will insert the link in the chat as well. And with that, Ross, please take it away.
Thanks, Dalia. Hey, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Ross Kukulinski. I will be your speaker today for today's user call. I'm the Senior Director of Product Management here at Kong, broadly responsible for all things SaaS. So when we're looking to deliver our product capabilities to our customers through a SaaS footprint, that rolls up through me and my teams. And today we're going to be digging into a bunch of stuff, primarily going to be focused on Kong Konnect updates, but also we have a bunch of content that recently came out at API Summit earlier in September. And so I'm going to do a quick review of some of the keynotes from there, because there's a lot of Konnect stuff woven throughout API Summit, and there's some other good tidbits there as well. But we're going to be digging in a little bit deeper into some of those demonstrations and Konnect features. We'll talk about Konnect product updates. I've got a demo. We'll talk about some customer stories that happened at API Summit, and then we'll finally wrap up with Q&A. So just a quick reminder for those of you who are not familiar, API Summit this year was phenomenal. We had so many great talks from customers and community members, and also obviously from Kongers on our approach and our vision for the approach of APIs. This was a virtual event back in the end of September, but all of the content was recorded and is available to you. Some of the keynotes that I thought were particularly compelling, and we'll talk more about SeatGeek at the end, but Augie, who's our CEO and co-founder, really had a great session with SeatGeek as well as Comcast, talking about what it's like to become an API first company and what those transitions are like for our customers. Then Marco Palladino, who is our CTO and co-founder, had a really fascinating CTO keynote with two main announcements, one around dedicated cloud gateways for Konnect, so a fully SaaS gateway experience from Kong Konnect, and we'll spend some more time and see a live demo of that. And he also announced the exciting Insomnia 8.0 GA release that also includes a set of new AI capabilities, some auto testing, some great usability improvements. Then Reza Shafi, who's my manager, the VP of product here at Kong, got to talk about all of the major keynotes, new product announcements across our entire portfolio. But there was a lot of Konnect in there, including I was involved as part of a demo of that. Definitely watch those three. And then the one that actually was sort of the surprise winner in terms of content was a really wonderful AI and APIs fireside chat with Marco and an investor from A16Z. So really, those are four keynotes that you don't want to miss. So definitely find some time to watch those. And all of the sessions, so all the keynotes and all of the individual sessions from community members, customers are all available on demand for free. That QR code right there, I'll give you a minute, take a picture of that, open it up on your phone. That'll take you to the event system, and that'll allow you to register if you haven't registered already. And then you can live stream all of that content for the next year. So definitely highly encourage you to spend some time on that. Now, switching on to the heart of today and talking about Konnect and our product portfolio. I think it's important for those of you who are still coming to Kong, or especially if you're a community member, maybe you spend most of your time with Kong Gateway open source or our Kong Ingress controller. You may be most familiar with our world-class API runtimes, Kong Gateway, Kong Ingress, and Kong Mesh. All of those build on open source projects, and we have commercial versions of those. That may be your happy place, and that's what Kong is traditionally well known for. But the investments we've been making over the last 2 to 3 years have been primarily at that SaaS delivered layer, Kong Konnect, really bringing together a unified API management platform that allows streamlined operational behavior for all of those world-class runtimes. as well as building a series of SaaS delivered applications on top of those. Things like API products and developer portal, API monitoring, API analytics, and a service registry. So we're going to spend most of the day talking about that Kong Konnect platform. And of course, Insomnia is our developer-focused tooling for designing, debugging, and introspecting APIs. And Kong Insomnia fits into the rest of the portfolio primarily through what we call API ops, basically using GitOps workflows and CI tooling to declaratively configure, declaratively manage your Kong Gateway or your Kong Konnect or your developer portal experiences. So that's how those products fit together. And I think this is important to sort of look at that in another angle. When we talk with customers, or I spend most of my time talking with customers and community members, we think about building an API platform. Most of our customers are trying to develop and build API platforms. They might have a API platform team, or oftentimes there might be the team that was successful with Kong Gateway sort of grows up and gets promoted inside the organization and challenged with offering that as a service to other development teams inside that organization. And we've had many customers that have been very successful building API platforms on top of Kong Gateway, Kong Ingress, and Kong Mesh. But it can take dozens and sometimes even hundreds of engineers to build and operate those platforms. So what we're doing with Kong Konnect is building that platform in a box, giving our customers the opportunity to choose which runtimes are most important to them, Gateway or Ingress or Mesh, plug that into a SaaS delivered control plane, and then they can choose which of the SaaS delivered applications are important to their business and to their internal teams. So that's the vision of what we're building here at Kong as part of the Kong Konnect portfolio, as we bring all of those products together under one roof. Now let's talk about the things that we have been shipping in within the Kong world, or within Kong Konnect. Now it's important. Today's session, I'm going to be focusing mostly on the second and third layers of this 3-layer cake. The bottom layers, the specific runtimes, Kong Gateway, Kong Ingress, and Kong Mesh, they all have their own independent roadmap and release cadences. They all are supported with Konnect the same week that those releases go live. But today's session is not going to be focused on specific enhancements to Gateway, Ingress, or Mesh. We have other roadmap sessions, and maybe that's something I know that the Gateway team periodically comes to this user call to give a roadmap session. Same goes for Ingress and Mesh. So what have we been up to with Konnect? Well, we've been really busy. This is actually just a snapshot of some of the main things that we've shipped since April of this year. The Konnect SaaS team deploys to production about 300 times a month. That includes bug fixes, that includes UI enhancements, and it includes customer-facing new enhancements or major capabilities. I'm not going to go through all of these. There is a ton of them, but we definitely make it easy to keep up to date with that. And I think I have a slide a little bit later on kong.releases.live, which is a website we have that sort of rolls up all of these product announcements. It's also available through our website and obviously product documentation in the release notes. What are the big things that are new in the last month or two, or the things that we announced at Kong API Summit? And they really fall into 4 main buckets. Number one, a key part of Konnect is reducing the operational complexity of managing those API gateways or that service mesh for our customers. And so the announcements there, number one, we announced a tech preview of cloud gateways or dedicated cloud gateways, a fully SaaS-based gateway offering that's part of Konnect. We'll spend a lot more time talking about that. We also introduced self-service custom plugin management in Konnect. So Konnect has always supported custom plugins, but it was required a support ticket to our team to get that schema file uploaded to Konnect. Now it's fully self-service, UI, and API driven. The next key capability and sort of series of content that comes from Konnect has to do with federated governance at scale. So oftentimes customers need to move beyond just managing one API gateway. They need to manage 4 different environments: dev, staging, UAT, and production. They need to have it in the US East, US West, and in Australia. Then they need to start worrying about how do they enable other teams, other business units to share access to that platform, and how do you provide isolation? And so we introduced a very powerful capability in Konnect called control plane groups that allows that federated use case. On the full API lifecycle, really excited to bring Kong Mesh into Kong Konnect. We've had Kong Gateway and Kong Ingress Controller throughout this year. Kik came to Connect in April, and we made a real big announcement at API Summit about Kong Mesh now being available as a SaaS capability in Connect, with that global control plane offered as a service by Kong. And then finally, we're always pushing the envelope around security and compliance and allowing our customers to have a better, more secure footprint. So key capabilities there, we've expanded our multi-geo footprint. So we have US and Europe, and Australia is coming as our new geo in November. We introduced for the developer portal, allowing you to drive portal OIDC team mappings, meaning you can configure the access of which API products a developer should have access to based on your IDP, rather than having to do it all in Connect. And a really cool beta feature API requests that allow you to see every single API request that flows through your platform. Let's dig in a little bit more detail into each of those things. And I'll be doing demonstrations of these as well. So first, Kong Mesh in Kong Konnect. So Kong Mesh, if you're not familiar, is the commercial mesh offered by Kong. It builds on a cloud-native computing foundation. That's the same people that are behind projects like Kubernetes and etcd and Prometheus. Kuma was originally built by Kong and then donated to the Cloud-Native Computing Foundation. And Kong Mesh basically allows our customers to have an incredibly easy to use and flexible service mesh, not just for Kubernetes. I think there's two things that our mesh approached solving the mesh problem differently than other service meshes that are available in the marketplace. First, Kong Mesh assumes our customers are going to have more than one Kubernetes cluster. A lot of meshes were designed with a focal point of just one Kubernetes cluster. Kong Mesh was designed with the assumption that our customers and the community will need to securely manage and have observability of east-west traffic between more than one Kubernetes cluster. And so we've designed our architecture with a global control plane that's now SaaS through Connect, as well as zonal control planes that run inside of each of your availability zones or cloud regions or Kubernetes clusters. The second key differentiation for Kong Mesh is we assumed that not all customers were going to have Kubernetes. We view Mesh as a way to help customers move from monolithic applications to microservices, or to move from one cloud to another, or on-prem to a cloud. And Service Mesh is incredibly powerful to help enable those use cases. And so because of that, we designed our mesh to support a universal mode. You can deploy our mesh and deploy that data plane for applications running in virtual machines, running with other container schedulers like Nomad or Docker Swarm, or just old school Docker, as well as running on bare metal machines. And they can all be connected to the same service mesh fabric and allow that API traffic to flow. And so we're really excited to bring Kong Mesh into Connect. So that global control plane is now offered as a service in Connect, allowing single sign-on, using Connect's RBAC policy to control the behavior of which teams can control and configure which policies in your mesh environments. So really, really exciting. This is GA, and it's available as part of the Connect Plus, as well as our Connect Enterprise offerings. Next major announcement was cloud gateways. So Connect, just like Kong on-prem, runs in a hybrid mode. We have a control plane and data planes. The data planes proxy API traffic. They're the ones that are encrypting and decrypting API traffic that comes through. That's where the plugins execute and mutate that API traffic, or add headers, remove headers, or that's where you deploy your custom plugin code. And then the control plane in Connect is a SaaS offering from us. So you don't have to worry about operating that database or the control plane APIs or the Kong Manager UI. It's all just operated as a service. Now, that works well for a lot of our customers. They want those data planes running in their network right next to their applications. But we have a number of customers that really wanted a fully SaaS offering from Kong. They don't want to even worry about operating the data planes. So this is something we've been working on for the last year, and we're really excited to start to roll this out as a private tech preview program. And so what this Cloud Gateways does is it's a dedicated cloud environment. So Kong will deploy for every one of our customers a completely isolated AWS account. We provision the VPC, all of the networks. will allow you to do things like transit gateway peering. So if you want to do private link to directly from our AWS account to yours, and we then deploy and operate those Kong gateway data planes entirely from us. I'll do more of a live demo of this a little bit later today, but really excited for this. And if you are interested right now, we are starting to onboard the first wave of customers into this environment, and we'll also start looking into bringing community members and Konnect users as well. So there's a way to, if you express interest, if you have a Konnect organization, the next time you go to create a new control plane, you'll have a choice. It'll say standard hybrid or cloud gateway, and it'll say tech preview. If you click on tech preview, it'll open up a form. You can give us your information, fill out with what you're trying to accomplish with it, and we'll add you to that short list for that private tech preview program. Next is custom plugins. So I mentioned this earlier, but Konnect has always supported custom plugins. So you define in that control plane the schema of the plugin you'd like to have, and then in your data plane is where you actually deploy that Lua schema, or the Lua plugin, or your Go plugin, your Python plugin. What we've enabled in Konnect is a self-service way of managing this. So in the Konnect UI or API, you can now upload those schemas automatically per control plane. And then you just have to worry about managing the data plane, the plugins themselves in those data planes. This includes not just Lua support, so you can do Go, JavaScript, and Python plugins as well. And all of the validation is done automatically. So really a great user experience improvement for our customers, and that's available in all Konnect tiers. Next is control plane groups. So in Konnect, one of the major differences we have in Konnect in comparison to Kong Gateway open source or even Kong Enterprise on-prem is the ability to create more than one control plane. So again, we've got that control plane and those data planes. Typically on-prem, when you want to set up a new control plane, you have to deploy a database, Postgres. You have to deploy the Kong Gateway control plane and then secure it and set up RBAC and permissions. And then you maybe even deploy the Kong manager to have that UI experience for those things. Configuring and managing that, you have to run the infrastructure for that. In Konnect, we've taken that experience and we operate it entirely as a service. So it's a single click in the UI or a single API call, and within 10 to 15 milliseconds, you've got a new SaaS delivered control plane that you can then deploy data planes to. And this has allowed our customers to really unlock allowing other development teams to have their own isolated sandbox. Every team can have their own control plane. Every environment, dev, prod, stage, you can have your own control plane. You have complete isolation at that control plane layer. So it's just a really powerful idea. However, there are scenarios where customers want to have some isolation at that control plane, but they want to be able to merge configuration of more than one team and push it down to a consolidated set of data planes. A great example of this is maybe a development environment or maybe in a staging environment. You want teams to have their separate control planes, but you don't want to run dedicated data plane infrastructure for every single team. Typically, this is in organizations that are still on VM or bare metal deployments for the data planes. And so you're provisioning very large infrastructure machines. Doesn't make sense to provision 264 core machines for every development team. And so in those organizations, it makes sense to use a new feature called control plane groups. Control plane groups allow you to have team blue and team yellow. Both have their own control plane. They push their configuration to that, either using DEC, the Konnect UI, or directly to the API endpoints, the admin API. And then the control plane group takes those two configurations, plus any configuration that maybe the core API platform team has defined, maybe a common set of global plugins that must always be available. And those get merged together and pushed down to a shared set of data planes running in your environment. So this allows you to have the flexibility of having strong isolation of the control planes most of the time, and take advantage of shared infrastructure when appropriate. It's a really powerful capability. This is a GA feature, and it's available also in both our Enterprise and our Plus tiers, so available for everyone. And then the last capability that I'm going to provide some high-level information on before we get into that live demonstration is API requests. So Konnect through that hybrid mode. We've got the data plane that runs in your network, we have the control plane environment. We never see any of the body traffic. So actually the API body request data, that's yours. I don't ever want to see that. But we do capture the metadata about every API request. What was the host? What was the source IP address? What was the status code? Which gateway service or which route or which consumer made that API request? And that metadata is streamed in near real time up to the Konnect platform, giving you, and now through the Konnect platform, the ability to do both custom analytics. So you can build reports showing API requests over time, consumption by particular consumers, error codes or status or latency information through reports. And now with API requests, which is a new beta feature as of September, API requests allows your API platform team and your development teams to see line by line every API request that flows through your platform, and then see the contextual information. Which gateway service was it? Oh, it was my gateway service. Click on it, and then it'll take you directly to that gateway service. And now you can have a little bit more information, contextual information about those API requests that are flowing through your system. All right, that was a lot. Let's go through some of those things in live in the product itself. So I'm logged into my Konnect organization. This is something that you can also go to cloud.konghu.com and create your own account for free. Get started. We give you $500 worth of credits to use on the Konnect platform for free when you sign up. So everything I'm going to demonstrate here today is available to you, and we can start with that today. I'm looking at my overview page. First, it tells me some of the product updates. So I mentioned, it's kind of hard. We ship a lot of stuff. It can be hard to keep up to date. You can see that we released earlier in October the ability to compare latencies within the same report. And then I actually have a pre-release feature in my organization. I can see that we have a portal management API that's going to be coming later this month. It's already been enabled in my organization. You won't see that one, but once we go live with this capability for all customers, then you'll see that same release announcement show up for you. Now let's walk through some of those gateway manager capabilities. So first, let's talk about cloud gateways, because that's a really, really important one. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new control plane in my environment. So this is Gateway Manager. This is where I manage all of my Kong gateways. I have a couple of choices here. I can deploy a Kong gateway. So that's typical standard hybrid mode. I can configure a control plane group. We talked a little bit about control plane groups. We'll come back to that. And I can also deploy a Kong Ingress controller. So those are the three types of control planes. When we go with a Kong gateway, a typical Kong gateway control plane for hybrid mode, I'll actually have a couple of choices here. Let's go through this. This is a user call demo. Demo CP for the user call in October. October, I can spell. And I've got a couple of choices. I can go self-managed hybrid mode. So that means that I will be responsible for deploying those data planes in my environment, whether that's Kubernetes or Docker or a virtual machine in the SaaS, whatever. Or I can go tech preview and use our dedicated cloud gateways. Let me stick, this environment is dev. I come from the Kubernetes community, so labels and label selectors are important for me. So this is a environment is demo, and we're going to say DPs are cloud. And next, I'm going to be presented with some choices on how and where I want to deploy those data planes. Because now in dedicated cloud gateways, Kong is going to be operating those data planes as a service in our cloud environment. Now in custom mode, I'm going to have the most flexibility on configuring how and where they run. I can choose the instance size. So basically how much CPU and memory are going to be allocated to a particular instance. I'll go ahead and choose a dev staging one for this demo. Then I can choose which cloud providers. Now, initially in this tech preview, we're only offering AWS. When we go GA early next year, it will be AWS and Azure, and then GCP will be coming later next year. And then I can choose which regions I want to deploy into. Initially in this tech preview, we've got just 6 regions, but we've got plans to go to more than 24 regions by GA. So we're going to have worldwide coverage of all of these, all the major AWS regions. In this case, let me go ahead and pick, I think Oregon, I've got a private network ready to go. So private network, I'm going to choose this one I already have. And let's go ahead and pick, I can't remember, I think Ireland. Yeah, I've got a network here. I do have the ability to have much more fine-grained control over that network configuration. This is important for if you want to do things like VPC peering. So if you want a very secure connection between Kong's cloud gateway AWS account for you tied to your AWS account. We'll do that through Transit Gateway, which will provide a secure network link between our VPCs. To do that, you need to know a little bit more information about your network footprint. So choosing which site or range or IP range block is appropriate for us to use on our side. That way we can do appropriate routing between those things. If you're not planning on doing any VPC routing, great. Well, I've got some default networks that you can just use out of the box. Finally, you can choose how many data plane nodes you want to have provisioned in each one of those geos. So if you know in the US is where most of your traffic is, scale that up to 8 or 10 instances. If in your Europe data zone, you know, if you've got much smaller amount of traffic, you can start with a smaller amount. So this is custom mode. We will also be introducing by GA autopilot mode. And I don't have it enabled in my org yet. We're still working on development, but autopilot will allow you to basically say, I expect baseline, please pre-warm the cluster for 500 requests per minute. We'll choose the right sizing vertically based on your configuration, and you just need to tell us which geos you want it in. You configure which cloud providers and which regions. We will handle this vertical scaling and horizontal scaling to meet your API traffic needs. So really, really powerful. We can go ahead and hit create cluster. And that will start provisioning that cloud gateway for me. Now, because this is dedicated, we are stamping out a brand new AWS account. We're stamping out new VPCs, provisioning new infrastructure just for you. It truly is dedicated, giving you strong isolation of that data plane layer. This takes 15 to 20 minutes to complete that deployment. I have one already set up and ready to go. So this is my standard demo environment. You still have complete admin API access. So through Connect, you can still configure and manage everything through deck or through the UI or through the API directly. And then we will configure a global proxy API endpoint. Now, this is a global DNS entry. And based on which regions you have selected, if you make a DNS query from that region, you'll get IP addresses of that. So it's latency-based awareness for that DNS routing. So I can take this proxy API endpoint, put it in here, and go to one of my routes, ISS, or where is the International Space Station, and that gives us the real-time coordinates. And that API request for me went through, probably went through my data plane nodes that are based in Oregon. I'm in Seattle, so pretty close to me. But if you actually query that DNS record, a European colleague on this call, if you query that DNS entry, you'll actually get IP addresses for my data plane group that is based out of Europe. So incredibly powerful and really excited to have this capability. It also does support things like custom domains. So I had this URL, that was the Kong provided DNS. I've already gone ahead and set up cloud.ross.dev. So we can actually do that, cloud.ross.dev. And that'll give me that same endpoint through my own custom domain. So you've got choices there in terms of making sure that it looks and feels just like your company and your brand, but operated as a service by Kong. We know a thing or two about operating gateways. So that's a high-level overview of the cloud gateway experience. Really excited to have that roll out to tech preview and to some of our customers now. And while I'm talking about that API traffic, why don't we go ahead and take a look at our analytics capabilities in Connect. So we've long had the ability to see summary capabilities as well as the ability to build custom reports. Now, custom reports allow you and your development teams the ability to look at API traffic from all of your data planes that might be connected, and then graph them in real time and build information. So let's go ahead and take a look. I want to just look at that control plane that we just made some requests against. So I have my cloud gateway control plane. So I'm going to set up a filter by control plane, only show me analytics information for anything in the control plane cloud gateway. And we can then group by, let's say, gateway service. So that'll show me traffic by gateway service. Let's also go to a much longer period of window. Let's go the last 30 days. And so we can see here, I'm able to build this report showing me the API traffic by gateway service over the last 30 days within that control plane. I can also do smaller grouping. So I can say, just show me the status codes. What do the status codes look like across those? So really powerful capabilities. And we actually recently introduced the ability to select more than one metric. So for example, instead of looking at request count, maybe we look at response latency and response latency P99 and P50. And so we can see that here are for world time API, we've got a pretty consistent response latency is for both. But we've got the P50 is 1 millisecond, but our P99 is 650. So something's going on. Our P99 for where is the ISS is pretty out there. And so we can do additional filtering and dialing in to understand how and where that happened all through that Konnect platform. Now, the cool thing that we just released in September is this. This is the API request feature. So this is a beta feature. It's available to all users during this beta, so definitely get hands-on and start playing with it. But this allows us to do the same type of filtering and look at each individual API request. So let's go look again. Let's filter by that control plane that I was just making some requests to. So let's filter just by control plane, hit apply. And so we can see, actually, here's my ISS. I hit this route. So this is the request that I just made a few minutes ago. We can see, that's my client IP address. If you want to go find me here in Seattle, we can see the URL that was hit. For that was the upstream URL that was hit, the control plane. We can see which route was actually interacted. We can also see the API product and API product version information associated with that. And so what's nice about this is being able to see, more detailed information about the request and response. And then if I wanted to make some modifications, I could click on this route, and that will take me directly to this route in that control plane that was handling those API requests. In fact, we can see that API traffic right there. So those are a couple of the really exciting capabilities that have come out. So we talked about cloud gateways and the new API request feature. Now, while we're still here in Gateway Manager, let's touch on the control plane groups. So here in the scenario, every one of these control planes in my Gateway Manager, fully isolated control planes. So I could give every one of you, like if I was the API platform team and we were all on the same team, I could give every one of you your own control plane. You have complete freedom to configure whatever you want in there. And that's incredibly powerful. Rabobank, I'll talk more about Rabobank, but Rabobank actually does this with the Konnect platform in GA. They've got about 600 what they call squads or development teams. And every squad has their own control plane and their own set of data planes. And that's what they use for all of their east-west traffic. And now they're starting to roll out their front door API traffic through Konnect as well. And so it gives them that freedom of self-service access to those development teams without that core API platform team being a bottleneck. Now that's powerful. But there are scenarios where you want to be able to take the configuration from more than one control plane and merge them together and deploy down to a single set of data planes. So in this scenario, I'm going to take, as the API platform team, we've got a staging blue team. So this is our blue team. They have a gateway service here called Blue Upstream, and they've got a route called Blue. And then we can go to our green team. So my green team also has a green service and a green route. Very, very exciting. Now, as the API platform team, I can create a new control plane group. So I'm going to call this is our staging control plane group. And let's go ahead and pick which control planes we want to be members of this. Here, I'm going to pick staging blue and staging green. And this is my environment is staging for my label. Let's go ahead and hit save. Now, obviously, I'm doing this all through the UI. Everything I'm doing in the UI can be done through APIs as well. In fact, I want you to eventually get to the point where you're doing everything through APIs, but we're trying to make it easy to use the first time run through with the UI. So there, we've created a new control plane group with 2 different members, 2 different control planes. And now when we go look at gateway services, we're going to see that merge configuration. So our blue upstream, I've got them named wrong. Blue service and green service and our routes, blue and green, are there merged together. And then once I deploy some data plane nodes, so if I were to actually go ahead and create data plane nodes, let's say I was doing this on my local Mac with a Docker script or deploying to Kubernetes, those deployed data planes are then going to have that shared configuration of all of those. That's control plane groups. I'm really excited to have that. And then let's talk a little bit about mesh. So if you've been using Konnect before, we've had the Gateway Manager. It used to be called Runtime Manager. When we introduced Mesh Manager, we actually renamed. Gateway Manager is the new name for managing your Kong gateways, and Mesh Manager is, ta-da, surprise, it's for managing your Kong mesh environments. Now in Mesh Manager, just like Gateway Manager, you can deploy more than one global control plane. In this case, I have a global control plane already configured and running. So this is my development one that I use for demos like this. And we can see things are healthy. I've got one zone running. I have one mesh configured, and I've got a couple of services running, a couple of data plane proxies that are running. So that's great. Let's take a look at my zones. I have one zone actively connected. This is, I have on my local MacBook, I have Docker Desktop with an embedded Kubernetes environment. So I have that running my zone. If I wanted to attach a new zone, let's say I was going to go create a new EKS zone, so user group EKS. Going through this process will then generate the configuration, deploy Kong Mesh as a new zone controller to a given EKS or AKS environment. You have some choices. Do you want to have a zone ingress and zone egress? I won't go into all of these details, but basically it's just a handful of a Helm chart setup. We have a particular secret to deploy, and then you connect your zone. And usually within a minute, that zone has now connected. And once that zone is connected, we can go and look and see what's everything that's running inside of that Kubernetes cluster. So this is looking information at my zone. I can see the current configuration of my zone. I can look at all of the ingresses. So I have one ingress that's been set up for handling inbound mesh information. I also have an egress. So if my applications make requests outbound of my Kubernetes cluster, they always come from this egress IP address import. And then we can take a closer look at my mesh. Now, this is when I mentioned Kong Mesh having some unique capabilities. One of those is this idea of virtual meshes. So you deploy the network fabric, Kong Mesh, but then on top of that, you can layer virtual meshes. So you could have every team could have their own mesh, and it's like their own complete sandbox that might span more than one Kubernetes cluster. Or you might use this as deploying and having isolation between different environments or different networks. So you have a lot of power with that. Now, I just have a default mesh configured. And in my case, I've set up mutual TLS. So all network traffic between my applications automatically secured. And we can see all of the services environment. So every one of my Kubernetes services on the left here is going to have a corresponding mesh service address. And that's important because if I'm in a different Kubernetes cluster and I want to be able to talk to my other services in other Kubernetes clusters in other zones, I can just hit that address column, and the mesh will help navigate that traffic to wherever it needs to go. So super powerful. And then I also have information on all the data plane proxies. And I can actually zoom in and see more detailed information about which Envoy versions are running, et cetera. So really, really powerful to have all of this plumbed into the Konnect platform and the team and permissions that we have in Konnect. So I can create, for example, a mesh team, mesh. And we can give this team the appropriate permissions and a set of mesh responsible roles. So I can choose which mesh they might have access to. And then I can control what information they are going to have access to within the context of this mesh. So the same powerful capabilities for Konnect teams and RBAC permissions we've got everywhere. We made sure that works natively with mesh. What am I missing? We did API control blast. Oh, custom plugins. Let's do custom plugins as the last one, and then I'll wrap up the demo and move on to the last couple of slides before getting to Q&A. So last one is the custom plugin support. So again, we're coming back here to Gateway Manager. Let's go take a look at let's say my production green. Now in Konnect, just like on Gateway, we include a whole host of the Kong plugins that are natively bundled with Kong Gateway. So these are bundled by Kong. They're fully supported by us. Authentication, we've got, a ton, everything from OpenID Connect, JWT, validation, request transformation, like tons and tons of plugins. But part of the power of Kong is the community aspect. We have community members like you. Our customers build plugins and our partners build plugins. And so in Konnect, it's now possible to create additional custom plugins and make them available on a per Konnect control plane basis. So for example, let's say this development team really is looking to use Mozif as an API monetization plugin. We can go ahead and here, you can't see it, but I'm choosing mozif.lua from my local file system. So I'm doing this with the UI. Also can do this with the API. This is the schema it's not mine, it's the Mozif plugin. And I can hit save. And now that plugin is now available. So I can instantiate that plugin. In this case, for billing, this probably should be done at the control plane level to capture all traffic. you could still configure this on a per service or per route basis. So now I can configure that MoSIF plugin and hit save, and I've just linked this control plane to have access to that MoSIF plugin. So really powerful capability that's now in Konnect, allowing you to have self-service access to those types of management. All right, quick sip of coffee, and we will pick up after the demo. All right, so last little section before we dig into open up for Q&A. I want to highlight a couple of customers that spoke at API Summit on their use of Kong and Konnect in particular to solve some like real hard problems for their business. The first I want to highlight is SeatGeek. Jao Mikos, who's the director of engineering at SeatGeek, both was in Augie's initial keynote. He also had his own keynote session, really going deep into SeatGeek's journey of modernizing their APIs, building that API platform, and actually going beyond just the API gateway piece. They are using Konnect and our developer portal and API products to open up new revenue streams, onboarding new partners into their API platform. And so that's a key part of their business, not just making sure that they can safely deliver every Taylor Swift ticket that needs to go out the door, but also onboarding partners and generating new revenue streams for their company through Konnect's API products and developer portal. So the QR code here will take you directly. I think it takes you straight to YouTube. It's a public video for this particular one. SeatGeek had another more technical talk that is available through the API Summit platform. So Anderson, who's one of the engineers at SeatGeek, did a more technical talk as well. So that's a great recommendation to watch. The other one, and I've had a real pleasure working with both of these customers in particular over the last year and a half, is Rabobank. Rabobank is one of the top banks in the world and incredibly impactful, important bank in Europe in particular. And they have been working with Kong about a year and a half now, but they started their production journey. They went live with Konnect in production in April of this year. And within about 6 weeks, they'd already onboarded about 200 development teams. They have got 500 plus control planes in Konnect, and they are on pace to migrating around 2,000 APIs, on pace to do 2.5 billion API calls across 215 plus teams over the next 6 months. And so this QR code will also take you to a YouTube video. It has Rabobank actually put together their own video about their transformation experience and what it was like in their experience. And then it goes into a fireside chat with the Rabobank team, as well as Reza Shafi, our VP of product. So another really, really wonderful session. I encourage you to watch that one. And then other sort of interesting industry news from us. Kong really excited to be named a leader for 4 years in a row now in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for API management. This really shows that our execution, our product strategy, our vision are really pushing the boundaries, and the industry analysts are recognizing that. But I think the thing that's a little bit more interesting, this is important, don't get me wrong. But the Gartner Peer Insights, basically the customer responses and customer reviews, we were a leader in the customer feedback category as well. And we were the only leader that was in both, or only company that was both a leader in this Magic Quadrant, as well as in the customer peer feedback session. So not just do the analysts think that we've got good products, but the thing I care about is our customers and our community members love Kong. So thank you all if you were involved in voting for Kong in any of that content, or giving feedback, or giving us survey results. It drives us, it makes us better. We try to make better products, better projects to enable you to solve real problems. All right, and as I mentioned, everything I walk through today, all of those capabilities are available to you today. So you can go ahead and get started with Kong Konnect today. It's a QR code that'll take you directly to a registration page. You can sign up, and we'll give you $500 of credits to use with the Konnect platform that you can use over the next 30 days. So definitely please take it a try, take it for a spin. We'd love your feedback, especially for some of those new capabilities that are in tech preview and beta. Would love to get your feedback. And with that, we're on to Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ross. That was amazing. Very informative. Let's see if we have any questions from the audience. Please use the Q&A function on the bottom and ask right away. Yep, you explained so well. There's no questions.
Or I talk too fast. Everyone's gonna have to go back and watch the recording at half speed.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, last chance. Ask questions now before we wrap it up.
Really, no questions.
Yeah.
Ah, is there an offline event? Okay, good. Here we go. Deli, I'll let you answer the offline event one.
I'm not sure what exactly do you mean by an offline event?
I'm assuming, like, is Kong having more in-person events?
Oh, yes, we have many in-person meetups happening around the globe. So let me send you a link to all of our meetup groups. So depending where you're located, check out if we have a local meetup group there and stay tuned for the events. But we have a few happening. For example, in November, we have Paris. December, we have Hyderabad in India, LA. So yeah, let me send you the link so you can stay tuned.
And then I'll answer, Francisco's got a question around the custom plugin piece. So I'll go back to that briefly. So in Konnect, we're talking about adding the custom plugins. So here I came to a control plane and I went to custom plugins and I added this Mosif plugin. So that was where I uploaded the schema that defines the configuration parameters that are available for that custom plugin. It's your responsibility to install however you are deploying the data planes. So if you're in Kubernetes or a Docker or installing onto a, on a VM, you would probably do something like the Lua Rocks install process. So the same way you always deploy plugins to the data planes, you still do that. And I've got a documentation link. I just pulled it up. Here it is. And I will put that into the webinar chat. So you've got it, Francisco, in terms of the custom plugins for Konnect, and then the upload data files to the data planes. This is the same process as you normally do it on universal mode. So that's plugin deployment. And on Docker, you've got a little bit more work in terms of mounting the plugin binaries via like a local file system. So you've got some options there in terms of how you deploy data planes in your environment.
And just to mention one more time, the recording will be available shortly, maybe in like an hour at our YouTube channel. I just included the link in the chat, so please subscribe there and you can rewatch it as soon as it's ready. Any last questions for Ross? Let's see. If you have any questions, you can also post them on our Slack. Let me send you a link as well. It's open to everyone. So.
And I am in that Kong community Slack. So if you wanted to send me, obviously asking the public channels is great, but if you've got a more personal question, happy to take direct messages as well through that Kong community Slack.
Yeah. Are there internship positions available? We don't have currently any internship positions, but we're looking into this for next year. So if we have anything available, we will announce it and at the careers page on our website. So stay tuned. But for the moment, no.
And we just started hiring in India. So we've opened up some space in India, and we are hiring and growing there.
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple more questions. So Roman's asking, what is the feature you're most proud of? Is there anything similar within other API management platforms like Apple?
That's a good question.
It's a fabulous question. There's so many things, and the hard part about answering this is whatever answer I give, my team is going to give me a hard time that I didn't choose their feature. Man. I think that I'm going to pick three. So Mesh Manager for me, there's no other product in the market that allows you to have the ability to manage gateways, Kong or Ingress solutions, and Mesh all under one hood with world-class runtimes. that's a big one to me. I know a lot of our customers are not, maybe don't think they're necessarily ready for mesh, but like when you get there, the fact that you have all of those things under one house, one roof, one vendor, that is incredibly powerful. And the insights that we're going to get we'll be able to offer to you through that. That's a big one. I think the cloud gateways is also huge, in particular for a lot of our customers that really don't want to operate any infrastructure. And so for our smaller companies or smaller DevOps shops or startups, I think cloud gateways is going to be really, really impactful, easy to use. It's the world's best API gateway, Kong Gateway, but operated as a service. And then I think the other one that we've been making a whole host of investments, I didn't really dig into it very much today, was our work around API products and the developer portal. We did a bunch of announcements earlier in the summer this year around our fully custom developer portal and API products. But the fact that we're making it easier for non-technical audiences to upload documentation, GitHub style Markdown, allowing you to think about how do you create products from your APIs. That's really something that I haven't seen really well executed from anyone, other than the companies. We have customers that have built this whole platform themselves, and they put 100 engineers on this for a few years. They've got great platforms, but I don't see anything that's turnkey that pulls those things together. So I'm pretty proud of those particular components. Of course, I'll get a lot of flack from my team for the other areas of Connect that I didn't mention. So I hope that gives my perspective to you, Roman. And then Pranavi is asking, for cloud gateways, can we connect to the AWS accounts directly to configure more like NLB? No. So we do not give you access to that AWS account. It's ours. We protect it. We protect it very, very carefully. So we do not give access into that AWS account. You do have some options in terms of configuration. So for example, if I come back here and update this cluster config, you do have choice on, like, for example, that NLB that fronts that. So today, it's during this private preview, it's just public. That is a fully public NLB endpoint. Before we go GA, we'll support private as well. So you'll have a private NLB that gets set up in each one of those regions that you can then use the VPC peering to have connection to. But no, we're not going to give access to that. The AWS account fully protected and owned by us. We from a compliance and security perspective, we cannot let anyone else to have access to that for this offering. But it's a great question. If there are things that you are interested in tuning, like, I would love to know more about what you want to modify or what you want to tune or what you want to adjust in that environment. There's probably ways that we will surface that through the API in the UI. So Pranavi, happy to connect with you as well through that community Slack as well, if you want to follow up with me.
All right, any more questions? Cool. All right, I think we can wrap it up. Thank you everyone who asked the questions. And of course, thank you, Ross, for the great presentation. We love having you here. Hope you will join us again for another user call soon. Thanks everyone who joined us. Stay tuned for our next events. Our next user call is actually happening in 2 weeks, or actually no, in 2 weeks, actually happening next week, very quick, on November 2nd. So let me send you a link if you want to join us. I will put the link here in the chat. There you go. It's painless Kong Gateway upgrades on Kubernetes with the Kong Gateway operator. A lot of new stuff. We will have the Senior Director of Developer Experience, Michael, presenting. So if you're available, join us. It will be great.
And if you like some foreshadowing, our cloud gateway capability I was talking about today, it's powered by that new Kong Gateway operator. So if you want to know more how we're building and using that as a system to streamline upgrades and lifecycle management of the data planes, go check out next week's session with Michael Heap, who I work closely with.
Awesome. Thank you, Ross. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, folks.
It was a pleasure. See you soon. Bye-bye.